welcome to our final webinar for the 2017-2018 Aspiring Leaders Cohort. We're very lucky tonight to have Alyse Consiglio, I hope I'm saying that right?
Right. Yep.
Okay, with us this evening, and she is going to give us inspiration about those of us that are aspiring leaders and we're struggling with finding that first position and how to keep us motivated, how to be resilient through this job search. So Alyse will introduce herself, share a little bit about herself, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Thank you, Jodie. So first I want to thank Jodie for having me here. This has really been a great year participating in this cohort with everyone and learning and getting everybody else's perspective and their ideas and just growing through the whole year. So thanks for having me.
Okay.
A little bit about myself. I was an 8th grade science teacher for a long time, 11 years total. And during that time, I am in the group of educators in Ohio that you were forced to get your master's within the first 7 years of graduation. So within that time, I had to pick what my master's was going to be in order to get that professional license. So as I was looking through, basically I knew it was narrowed down to either a curriculum and instruction degree or an administrator degree. I really wasn't sure about being a principal. That's really not why I had chosen to be into education. I really liked science. I was thinking about maybe going into something more into the science field, but just where my life was, I ended up deciding to get an administrator's degree. And that was really only because I thought, well, if I wanted to get out of education, maybe a business would take that as like a management degree, or they would take it, as an upper level degree. So I could always have that parachute to jump out of education. And so I got my master's and kind of life happened. When I was getting my master's, I was pregnant with my first daughter, had her, newborn craziness ensued, had my second daughter, and more newborn craziness ensued. So they're 21 months apart, and it just wasn't the right time to job search. So I had my administrator's license for a couple of years before I even decided to do anything with it. And I still really wasn't even sure that I was going to use it to be a principal. At the time, a new principal came on, and he knew I had my administrator's degree. And so he asked if I wanted to be basically have an administrative duty one day or one period out of the day, which I thought was great. So I kind of took on some of the tasks. I did some of the organization for testing. I put together some schedules. I did a lot of things just, for our middle school itself. So it was really kind of interesting to have that involvement in the office, but without having the responsibility of having to, be the person who made all the decisions. So after a few years, I decided that I was ready to move on and to look for a principal's job. So I had applied at a couple different places locally, and I think I had 4 jobs that I had applied for, that I actually interviewed for, and got second interviews. And it was always a thanks, but no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. We're going to hire someone that's within our district already. Thanks, but no thanks. We're going to hire someone that's an alumni. And so, I even emailed the people that, superintendents, and I said, great, I'm glad you found somebody, but could you give me any tips? So I reached out for that feedback because I really wanted to know if it was something that I needed to work on or what could I do to get better. And a lot of them were just, it was kind of a toss-up. We had to go with somebody here. We went with somebody there. And so I just kind of kept out there searching. And so our local educational service center came with a position open at the end of my 11th year of teaching, and it was a curriculum and instruction supervisor position for classroom technology. I was just always a teacher that used a lot of technology in the classroom. Google Classroom wasn't even a thing then, so I had just been using Google with my students, Google Drive, letting them work on things and really trying to put everything. We had some Chromebook carts and we had some laptop carts, and nobody else really wanted to use them, so I kept hoarding them to my classroom. And so it just kind of gave myself a background in educational technology. I applied for the job. They called me the next day. It was really exciting. And so I took that position, which was never a place that I would ever see myself when I started, when you pick your major to be a teacher. So being part of the ESC was an amazing training ground. It was working with teachers, doing teacher professional development, working with administrators, doing a lot of data analysis, just kind of whatever anyone asked for, you had to research and deliver, and be ready to do anything at any point of the day. So even though it really wasn't what I was looking for, it ended up being what was the best thing for me and the best thing for my future. So that's, I think, one of the really big points in resiliency, is that you just never know where anything's going to lead you to. And what you thought was your goal, you might be taking a detour and it ends up being better than you could have imagined it. So I spent 3 years at the ESC and did amazing. My team there, we had a great, really great time. So I was classroom technology. They had someone for every subject. We served over 20 districts in our county, and did some really amazing things, some really innovative things that we could push the limits to. And my current position came open. I am at a very small 612 building. It's a parochial school, John F. Kennedy, in Trumbull County. We have about 300 students, grades 6 through 12. My children are in the system. They are in first and second grade right now. My husband is an alumni. And so I was no stranger to the school district. We were servicing them through the ESC with professional development. And when the principal's job came open, people said, "Oh, do you want it?" And I said, "No, I don't. I'm happy." And then, a couple months later, somebody said, "Oh, are you going to interview for the job?" And I said, "Oh, no, I'm not going to." And finally, as I was looking, I just really missed working with kids. I missed that fulfillment, and especially anybody out there that's a junior high teacher, that you see such big growth in them through the year. Who they come to you as is so different of who they leave you. And that fulfillment of seeing that growth and actually seeing, someone change because of the work that you're putting in was something that I really missed. So I decided to go ahead and take the position and make the move as a principal, which was really kind of scary. I was leaving public education. I was leaving a good retirement. So now I'm just working for that seat in heaven. And that's, what we say in Catholic education, we get you ready for college in heaven. So that's kind of where I am now. I would say it's not where I thought I would be, not where I thought I would be when I left college or when, I decided to enter teaching, but it really is, I'm really in a satisfied position, and this is ending my first year as a principal. So I'm really, things happen for a reason. And I know it's so cliche, but it's something that you have to believe in as you go on this journey. So a couple of things that I would say if I was giving any pointers would be to apply for a job, even though if it's not something you thought you'd want, maybe it's elementary and you've always been a high school principal or a high school teacher, or maybe it's, working somewhere more as a consultant or in an ESC, something like that. Anything that makes you more well-rounded as an educational leader is going to be good. So, maybe you've always been in a suburban school and you have a chance to be in an urban situation. That's always going to give you one more thing to put on that resume. And it doesn't mean you have to commit to somewhere for a long time, but every year that you're somewhere, every time that you're going somewhere that is a little bit different is just, another feather in your cap that you can add to that resume, and you can see what's out there, and you never know what you might like. I would say also just the interview experience when you're interviewing, that's a lesson in itself. And there were times in interviews that I thought this went exactly like I thought it would. And there were times in interviews that I felt like I was, keeping the superintendent from his text message conversation because it just felt so awkward that he was using his phone during the interview. So it was like going through those different situations and just seeing how you'd react, different questions, and whatever that district or whatever that position they're asking you, they're trying to fill a position based on their weaknesses. They're trying to fill a position based on what they need. And you may be what they need, and you may not be what they need. And that's okay. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, or it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the district. It's just like a relationship with, when I work with high school kids, we deal with, breakups and love and first loves and all that kind of stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with you, not that there's anything wrong with you. You're just not meant to be together, sort of thing. And that's kind of how it is with finding a job. So when districts are looking for that leadership position, they're probably looking for something very specific. They already have a lot of their team in place, and they know their strengths. And so they know where they need to fill in the perfect puzzle piece. So don't always take things personally. I think that it's just that you would never fill that position. And I know I didn't fill that position for some people. So you just keep going until you find where you are. When you're ready to interview, I think there's a couple questions that you need to start thinking about and start asking yourself and practicing, because it makes you that more stronger in each interview. So practice like your intro. So every interview is tell us a little bit about yourself. And I remember the first time I'm driving in my car and I'm thinking about going to my interview, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I started, and I had to start like 5 times. I'm like, I'm talking about me. I know me. Like, I'm the expert on me, and I can't even get this out without, talking over myself a couple times. So just practicing, 2 minutes of who are you? Everybody that's interviewing for a position, they graduated from a college somewhere, they have a master's degree. All of that stuff is boring, and everybody has it, and it's the same. It doesn't make you stand out. So all of those things you can gloss over. But I would get to your why. Why are you in education? Why is this the job for you? Why do you think you'd be the best fit? And again, talking about, do your research on a district and what is it they need. And, you can look at test scores. You can look at maybe they've had levies in the past, or what they're raising money for. Are they a 1-to-1 district? What is it that they're working for, and what skills can you bring to that part? So if you know your background, you've done some research, you're going to be that much better and maybe be that best fit for them. The other thing is always have your what next. So you get hired. What are you going to do in the next 100 days? Okay. What are you going to do? What's your first thing to do? And, depending on what what you might not know, always building relationships, building your team, finding the people that can support you. It's not what it's can you go find it out? Okay. And just like I tell my teachers, you have to teach like Google exists. You have to teach like kids can find the answer in their pocket. You can't teach like they got to look it up in the encyclopedia. And you can't administrate, and you can't be a leader, a district leader, acting like that either. You can't come in acting like you know all the answers, because if you do, congratulations. But I know I certainly don't. And I know that every day that something comes up, I just have to know where to find the answer. I have to know who to go to find the answer. I have to know where I can go to find those resources online, or what I can do, and be able to put something together quickly so that when there's an issue, I know that I have that information readily available. So making sure that, familiarize yourself with the resources that you have. If they ask you a question in an interview and you don't know, that's okay, because you would say, this is what I would do. And coming as a first-year principal, now I don't know what my answer would be in a few years, but there's plenty of days that I felt like I didn't know one thing that I was doing. One thing that happened that day, I was always asking. I'm very fortunate. The former principal is now the president of our district, so he's still in the building, he's still a resource there. Many of the people in the office have been there for a lot of years, so I kind of, well, what have we always done? And sometimes that answer is, okay, great, we do it great, let's keep doing it. And sometimes it's, ooh, why do we do it that way? Because we've always done it that way. What if we did it this way? Or why don't we do it this way? And so I'm trying to find that balance between change and not changing. So being able to come in and assess, and then what what the strengths and weaknesses are of the district that you're in, and being able to help them with that, preparing yourself. So part of that, preparing yourself, what are you doing as you're looking? Make sure that you're still networking, make sure that you're still giving yourself professional development, and step outside your comfort zone. So just like that, applying for a job that maybe you didn't see as your ideal job, or maybe you didn't see yourself, in that position, but you could convince yourself of it. Make sure that whatever it is that your weaknesses are. Some people know that they're weak in technology. Well, there's tons of resources out there to help you do that. Some people know that they're weak maybe in curriculum, or, depending on the type of teacher you are, that you don't have to be an expert on all the contents, but you should be, we're getting new English books in our junior high. I taught science. I'm not an English teacher. My English teachers are the experts. They're the ones who talk to the consultants. They're the ones who do that. But I've made sure that I look into what's the best way to teach English now, and how are other districts teaching English language arts, and looking at, I even know what anchor novels are and stuff like that. So I've learned some of the terms, because it's not my thing, but I need to know it at least enough to be a leader in the curriculum area. So remember, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Keep educating yourself. Don't become just strong in one thing, even though it's something that you like, it's something that you feel comfortable in. I could go on and on about technology, and I could teach myself all those things, but I know that comes easy to me, and it's something that I like. So it's not a big deal as much as maybe going out and finding some other information of things that I'm, weaker on, some things that I don't know, and making sure that you're trying to be as well-rounded as possible. This is a great example of, find a mentor, find someone to help you that's either in that position, someone that you trust. They don't necessarily have to be a principal if you want to be a principal, or a consultant if you wanted to be a consultant. Find someone that has just been in the game longer than you have, that can give you a different explanation, can give you a different viewpoint. Is always, always a great thing. So I think that's why this program is really awesome, is that you have people hooking up with, you have tons of experience, you have a little bit of experience, and all of our experiences have been different. So find a mentor, and learn from everyone, because even the worst principal that I had in the past, I learned something from that. Coworkers that I didn't necessarily get along with, agree with, I learned something from that. And then there's great people that are surrounding yourself, and you learn from that. So you're going to pull from all of those different experiences, and make sure that you're taking all of that into account. So you learn what you're not doing, or things that you don't think work, and things that do work. And know that you're not going to be everything to everyone, and not everyone enjoys every kind of style, just like we look at our teaching styles. So some kids could listen to a lecture and pick up the information like that. Some kids like to do things hands-on. I'd rather read than watch a video most of the time. It's just what your preferences are. And so that's okay. I keep going back to the analogy, nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with them. It's just that it's not a good fit. So trying to get different perspectives, finding mentors, looking at the people around you, finding the strengths and weaknesses that you can pull from that. If you're in a situation that you have a good relationship with a leader in your district, I would say ask to be a part of a project. Even if it's not a maybe official committee, or if it's not, you could always be part of your wellness committee. You can always be part of your technology committee. Anything like that that you can volunteer with, that you can get more experience, are always great things to do. But go to your principal. If you're a teacher that wants to be a principal and you have a good relationship with your principal, go to your principal and ask if they need help with something. Ask if there's something that you can take on. My teachers are wonderful, and they do a lot of things just because they've done them and they don't need any help from me. And that's awesome. So if you have an idea, you have something that you want to do as a passion, ask if you can do it. Ask your principal if you can, help out. And as a principal, believe me, most will not say no, because there's a million things for us to do. And it could be something so little. I remember I would go down and I would, when the OAAs, I think, I would write like the kids' names on the OAA booklets. And I would go through and write the numbers in, and I would sort them and all that kind of stuff. But somebody had to do it. And, I taught in a small enough district that there weren't district people there to do all those things for you. It was the principal's job, and he's running in a million different ways. So just doing some of those organizational things. It used to be called the ACT Explore. I think it's the Aspire now. So I would do the ordering for that. I would administer with the teachers. I would set up the schedule and send it all back, get the data, and do all those kinds of things. It's just one of those things that you could talk to, that you've done, you've implemented a plan, you've gone through with something, and you can be an asset to somebody else because you've already organized, you've taken on a project. If you're in Ohio and you're on the OIP, I know it is a huge pain, but it's one of those things that it is really good experience for going through the data and being able to analyze data and then come up with a plan, make some changes, and go through that. So any of those opportunities that you have, make sure that you take advantage of them. Make sure you ask that you can be a part of it. Try to get, I guess, as involved as you can. Don't take on too much. Don't get in over your head, but make sure, try to get a little bit of here and there just so you can see everything. So a lot of places, if you have a union, being on the negotiation team is something that I was on the negotiation team when we actually did our contract, and that was like really great experience for now being on the other side and doing negotiations on this side. So any of those examples that you can do, just make sure that you can take a part of that as you go through. And then, so that's kind of like your experience, what you're doing for yourself. And so then how do you tell everybody that, you're doing something different, that you are different than the competitors that are out there? So make sure you remember your audience. I did my resume. I had a website, and I had a more traditional resume. It wasn't the exact everything that you might see on a really traditional resume. I did have my degree on there, but I actually received a resume where I had somebody's elementary school where they graduated from elementary was on there. Like, I was hoping that if you're applying for a teaching job, you graduated from elementary school. So I didn't need to know that. But make sure that you're putting stuff on there that's going to set you apart, your key skills. As someone who reads resumes, I don't want to read a million different things on there. I want to know the important stuff. So again, your resume that you send out to one district might not be the same that you send out to another district. So being able to do something different to showcase yourself, but remember your audience, that the people that you're sending it in might not be, and I'm a tech person, might not be QR codes and websites and things like that. That would be great as an addition to, but you don't have to use that in order to know that you're a great person. So Make sure that, you're staying is a very fine balance, that you're staying on top of trends and you're trying to be different and you're trying to be forward thinking, but you're not so forward thinking that you're going to ace yourself out of a job because you have somebody that is not going to look at a QR code that you have on your resume. Make sure, of course, as you go through your resume change, make sure that your cover letter changes. All of those things are ways that you can, make yourself different. When I went into my last interview, I did have a website that was linked. I had a very simple resume. And then I had a card that was kind of like 5 things that I wanted to accomplish, or 5 things that I wanted to do. One was about like building relationships. And I had a quote on there. I can't even remember what it's for. It's already been a year. I can't remember anything. There was one about making changes that, we can't make changes ourselves, but we need to work together to make big changes. And I think the quote was from Mother Teresa on that. And so there were maybe like 5 different things. And like, we just need to get started doing things. We need to get organized. We need to do, all of these different things. And that was kind of my selling point. So I had my resume, and then I had this piece of paper that said the 5 things that I really wanted to accomplish. Those would change then if you would be going to different interviews. So those are just kind of my ideas, how I've gotten through from hearing no 4 times, which was very hard. It does, just like anything, I think teachers in general are a little control. We like to have control of our own classroom. That's one of the things about being a teacher, is that, you're used to doing what you're doing every day, and you're used to having that autonomy of your own classroom. And so when you go out and you're putting yourself out there and you're hearing no, and you can't control it, and you don't know why, or it's something that, it's very frustrating if you're trying to, for an outside district, they hire from the inside, and that's something that you can't help. You can't change that you don't work there yet. So things like that are very frustrating. You just have to remember, you just got to stay the course, and that as cliche as it is, things work out for a reason, and there could be a reason out there, and you might not know it for a lot of years, but it's out there. So that's kind of my wisdom for the night. I know we didn't go for the full hour, but I'm not that sure I have an hour of wisdom, Jodie.
No, that's great. I appreciate you for sharing your story, because that's what we need to hear. We need to hear not to give up, because I think, I've hit that where I'm like, okay, well, I'm done, after 3 years of looking. And I think that's definitely something that we need to, continue to go on and say, there's more time, there's more opportunities to go on. So that's what I was looking for. So thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So.
Yeah. And I know that, if you don't mind, I know Dennis is also a current leader. Dennis, do you have any words of wisdom to share on top of what Alyse just shared with us about your story of hearing no, or being resilient and keeping on? And
it's my daughter. She wants.
Oh, he's left. Okay, do you need to? You can go. Okay.
I just want to say hi. Say hi.
Hi, daughter.
This is Maya. You want to say hi, Alana? Hurry up. I'm on the time schedule. Yeah. Part of the leadership life that I'm trying to get better at is like the family part, because I don't always, it's a lot of sacrifice. And at least I'm quite sure you can speak to this. And I just put in the comment section that there's a part of this that you really want, like you value, you have a vision of a better tomorrow, and you want to create really strong teams to do great things for kids. But then all of a sudden, there's this piece that you really don't know, that you're like, oh, I didn't know that was part of the job too. And you have to be willing to embrace that part as well. Melissa, you said you were told no 17 times. Guess what? For my first principal job, I think I was told no. I put in probably 75 to 100 applications. So being told no, I hate to say this because it hurts. We want to begin our leadership journey. Being told no is part of the process. But it's what do you learn when you're told no that's going to make you better for the next time around. And sometimes I've also learned that being told no can also be a blessing, because there might have been
Amen.
You're not supposed to laugh that hard. But there is some truth to that. That sometimes when you're told no, it's actually preparing you for your real destination. And we can't get so wrapped up in, I'm not a leader yet, I'm not a leader yet, I'm not a leader yet. You actually already are a leader. When you think about the things that you do each and every day for kids, that's what makes you a leader. However, you start to see outside of your classroom walls, and you want to make learning better for all kids. Don't let anybody take that passion away just because you're told no a few times. Keep knocking at the door. Eventually, somebody's going to open the door and let you in. And when you're let in, you just take full opportunity of it. I love what you said, Alyse, about like the resume piece. Be very intentional about what you put on your resume. Sometimes, especially when we have a lot of experience, we go back and we list everything we did from the time we started teaching to our time now. And that makes your resume extremely long. And sometimes you don't read through all of that. You're looking for the key points that describe your leadership abilities, your abilities to create strong teams. We're looking for what is your vision. And even when you go on the interviews, pay attention to the questions, because someone once told me that, sorry for moving, when, for example, a lot of times the very first question they will ask you, tell me about yourself. And what most people do is they start literally telling everyone exactly what's on their resume. That's a wasted opportunity. That question is really defined for you to start telling everybody what your vision is and how you got to this point. I know what schools you worked at. I know what programs and clubs you were a part of. Now, if there's an interesting story, absolutely share it. But to just say, my name is Dennis Griffin. I graduated from Marquette University in 1996. And then I went to Alverno. And then I went to Cardinal Stritch. That's already on your resume. How are you making those connections with everybody in the room? Because you're interviewing for them, but they're also interviewing for you. So also just don't be so excited to be a leader that you will take any position, because once you start in that role, there's a lot that goes along with it that isn't outlined directly for you. But it will cause you to grow. It will cause you to become a better leader and a better person overall. So those are just pieces that I know I've experienced, because leaders are supposed to empower others. So you can't build a strong team. And something that I also know, if they're looking for a new leader, you should also be asking yourself, why are they looking for a new leader? Did the person just get a different position? And we don't talk about this a lot in education, but what type of environment are you walking into? Are you walking into an environment where people are embracing change? They are willing to take risks. They already are collaborative. Or are you walking into an organization where it's a 3 to 5 year plan for you to break down the silos to really create the change? So those are just a couple like additional pieces. I don't have much, because Alyse, like, you did an amazing job. Like, I was just glad to be here and like listen in, because you inspired me tonight. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Dennis. No, I'm really glad that you have your additions, because those are all great points too. That's very good. I like the you're interviewing them too. So I've been there. Yeah.
Because when you think about it, there's some, if you listen to the questions that they ask you, and when you ask your questions, please make sure you have some questions when you go to an interview. When I interview someone, even for my school, at the end, if you don't ask me any questions, I'm a little concerned, just not, it's not like a big red flag or anything, but if you don't have any questions, how are you going to ask questions when you actually become a part of our organization? What did you really hear about us? Because you should want to know, do you collaborate? You should want to know, do you have operating PLCs at your school? You should want to know, what supports are you going to provide me as a leader to help make me better? Like, those are all questions you want to ask, even as you're going in as an administrator. What supports are you going to provide me? How do you handle conflict as an organization is like a really big question that is great to ask, because conflict is inevitable. You're going to face it each and every day when you're an administrator. My last administrator told me that if I walk into work and I don't incur any problems that day, something's wrong.
You were hiding.
Like, there should be at least some, I'm not saying like they're all monumental problems, but you should incur some type of a problem on a regular basis. And it doesn't mean like my pencil sharpener doesn't work, but there might be two kids that had a disagreement. There might be a parent situation. There might be a scheduling situation. You just have to be prepared for it, because nothing's going to be the same each and every day. So just think about those parts, and like, you'll do great. You will do great. Leadership is like one of the best things around, but it's also going to require a lot of sacrifice from you and those around you. So make sure you have that conversation with everyone too, because that was hard for my family.
I think another point is that leadership is often lonely if you don't find the support outside of your building. So doing things like this, being in a Twitter chat, doing, like getting together with other administrators in other districts or things like that, because you have to remember it's a very odd transition when you're not one of them. You're one of them. You're not one of us anymore. You're one of them. And so it's a very hard thing to, wait, I'm still me. I'm still, hey, I'm one of you. And then that makes you even worse. So
one of the things that I learned, and it took me a little bit to adjust to this, when I was a classroom teacher, my greatest attributes were that I could close my door and I could accomplish the mission. However, when I became a principal, it didn't matter if I closed my office door. I can't accomplish the mission by closing my office door anymore. Right. I need everybody in the building to start using their energy to create synergy within our organization, to build a true learning organization so we can do what's best for kids. So my greatest ability became my greatest weakness because I was so used to depending on myself. And that's why a lot of times when they say you first start out, how do you build distributed leadership? Because how do you delegate? Delegation is critical because, like we said, you can't do everything. You can't be everywhere. So who are the key players on your team that they can help lighten the load a little bit? Because the work never stops. And no one ever thinks about how much work the principal gets.
That's true.
Oh, you're hosting I will see you in OED chat tonight. I'm coming. Just because I found out you're hosting it.
That's right. It's gonna be a fun one. So
you're there, so I know it's gonna be fun.
I'm
coming just because of that.
That's right. It'll be good.
So don't give up. Keep going. Keep going. Get feedback from a colleague. Have your colleagues that are principals ask you interview questions because they will be able to tell you what questions you're probably going to come up with. They're going to come up with for you. And then sometimes you get nothing that you practice and you just got to just go with it. So.
That's right.
Thank you, Dennis.
No problem.
Dennis always has words of wisdom to share with us. And Alyse, you did a wonderful job. And I don't want to run you too much over because you are hosting another chat in another 15 minutes.
I'm locked and loaded. I'm locked and loaded. So I will see you on Twitter, and it'll be a really fun one. We did best of. Jackie has some good stuff for us too, so it'll be good.
Good. So thank you very much for doing this tonight.